The following program is rated TV MAL. It contains strong language and is intended only for mature audiences.
It's finally Friday, my favorite time of the week, and I haven't been here in, well, actually, I was a little late on last week, but I still was here. I don't remember much, but anyway, that happens with old age, and I'm actually the youngest one here, so whatever. But welcome, it's finally Friday, and I'm really excited to be here. I'm your host, the Appalachian American. It is time for another episode of the War Room, and I have with me some esteemed fellow guests. First off, my left-hand man, the author, David Applegate.
G'day, friends and fans. Welcome to another War Room. We've got some amazing news, and stay tuned.
Yeah. Hey, we got a doctor in the house. His name is Dr. Coffin Nails.
Good evening. The important thing is I know what I'm a doctor of, and unfortunately, I always remember everything, especially the ones I don't want to remember, but it's okay.
Well, that's good, I guess. Last but not least, we got the channel dad himself, Brian Lake.
Yeah, and I did not. Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Okay.
Did it work? And
yeah,
I did not double check my audio settings.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Hey, Anime Night is not going to be in the house tonight. He's going to a Comic-Con, I think, thing.
Big event, yeah.
Yeah, Comic-Con event of some sort. He told us last week, but I don't remember the name. So
definitely not a furry convention.
Yeah, hopefully.
And yesterday, yeah. No, I was going to say that yesterday was the 5-year anniversary of the last episode of the fan.
So every Comic-Con that says definitely not furry is going to be full of furries.
I shouldn't have said that.
What you shared was the memory from last year.
Oh, that's right. 5 years. 5 years. You're right. I thought it was 4.
Yeah, it was 4 last year when you
gotcha.
And then you shared it a year later.
That's what it was.
What is this, the 5th anniversary?
Dang, bro, that means we've been going on the men's room for like almost 5 years. I'm pretty sure it's the beginning of May that we officially took off with the channel.
We had a couple other experiments that went and you said, hey, I got an idea, and you ran with it.
Yeah. And we haven't ran ever since because I'm still under 300 subscribers. Which, I mean, hey, look, I'm a dad. I don't really have time to be doing a whole bunch of stuff.
But hey, that's more than I had on the fan cast, and I ran that for I don't know how many years. So
yeah,
and I even had, that's where Kendo got its start.
There were so many people that were like, "Oh, the fan cast is going away," and I was like, "Yup." See, Justin was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna miss y'all," and I was like, I remember sending him a message like, "Bro, we're actually just gonna rebrand and like come back next week." Actually, did we take like 2 weeks off or something?
Yeah, we took them. I don't remember exactly how long, and then we tried the fans pop culture corner or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
That was just too long.
Yeah.
I was
like, let's just do
somewhere. I still have that login for that.
I saw an email pop up. Like I was sending out emails today. And I hit T because I always send Tony Tone Deaf an invite just in case he's a bit free or whatever. Him and ETEP always get invites because they're a pleasure to be around. So
ETEP always has a hilarious Facebook and Instagram too.
Yes, dude, for real. ETEP Aquilian used to be the place to be reviews. Now I can't say any different. It's wrestling with horror, but I'm still like, it's the place to be kind of deal. And I'm like, oh wait, no, my bad.
Why is
He rebranded too?
Instagram, he's always got his shirt off.
Yes, dude.
He's working out. He's trying to
like,
he's
every post
back in the ring.
Really? I don't know.
I thought, I'm pretty sure he's back in the ring.
Not officially. He has done a few spots for some friends, I believe.
Okay. I knew that he was
getting a little old for that crap.
He's contemplating getting back in the ring. He's a semi-professional wrestler.
He's showing off that he's the only one among us that doesn't have a dad bod, Brian.
Yeah.
That's what he showed off.
Hey, it's Robert Downey Jr.'s birthday today. He turned 60.
Hey, I could work out. I could look that good. I just choose not to. Okay.
Yeah, dude. I want to give everybody else a head start. We had some passing this week with Val Kilmer. Yes, you guys might know him as Batman.
Iceman. Batman.
Iceman. Yeah, well, he had a lot of mans.
If you'll notice, my banner.
Oh yeah, I'm your Huckleberry.
Yeah.
He was cool.
The greatest gunfighter in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, Val Kilmer.
Such a good movie.
American actor. Let's see what I can find on.
You know what? It was really great that he got to leave on a high. So many people who've been discarded by Hollywood usually never get a mention or a look again.
Oh, but you know what?
Tom Cruise gave him an exit.
Yeah, dude, that was fantastic.
And the next time I watch that movie, it's going to hit a lot harder.
Yeah, it will. Hey, so I'm looking through his filmography. Dude's got a laundry list.
There's some amazing movies that just got overlooked because he was in it.
Yeah, starting in 84.
Because remember, in the 90s, when people were blacklisted, the audience obeyed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's see. He acted all the way up until Top Gun Maverick because he had credits in 21 and 20. He had two. He had 2 in 21 and 2 in 20. One was a documentary. So I mean, that's kind of whatever.
The Doors. He did his own singing.
Really, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, didn't he do that in Top Secret too?
Top Secret, yeah.
When in fact, when Robbie Krieger visited the set when they were filming The Doors, who was one of the actual Doors, when they were doing the playback, he wasn't sure if that was Jim Morrison or Val Kilmer or not.
Oh, dang!
That's how good he got it.
Nice.
Yep.
Factoid.
They got so jealous of Val Kilmer, they did anything to tear him down after that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because, the Hollywood, you have to be a certain person, a certain politic to win awards, and he wasn't fitting it.
Right.
Yeah. Dang, he was a Prince of Egypt he was Moses in the Prince of Egypt in 1998.
Yeah, he did. He did some voice work too.
What was what was the movie he did where he was like a thief?
Was it The Saint?
The Saint.
The Saint.
Yeah,
I thought that was an okay movie. A lot of people didn't like it, but
based on the old series with Roger Moore.
It was a slow moving thriller, and people were used to fast pace because that was 97.
Yeah. Here, I've got his filmography pulled up. No way.
It was a year. It paved the way for much more mature movies, but unfortunately, Val Kilmer was reaching that point where he was unappreciated by his fellow actors. So anything he didn't do everything about him was exaggerated.
Yeah.
To the point of absurdity.
A lot of people discuss The Saint, talking about it was more of a Hollywood like jerk fest because it was dramatic people playing multiple different roles and whatnot. And I was like, dude, I kind of like The Saint, but I also watched it in like 97 or 98, something like that.
So did I.
I remember thinking it was a good movie at the time, but
we saw it.
But
I would like to go back and rewatch it.
Look at anything new. This is what Hollywood does, okay? Anything new gets torn apart, okay? This is why Hollywood produces for decades crap movies, and as soon as one becomes a hit, that becomes the next, string of everything.
Yeah.
If the audience stopped following trends and actually said, you know what, I'm just going to like a movie and don't care what the critics say. Well, one, the critics are out of business, but two, you'll actually enjoy yourself more if you stop letting others control your thoughts. So we're not here to control your thoughts. We're here just to inform you.
Honestly, I would like to go back through and watch some of these movies, like The Doors. That Doors movie, I wouldn't mind.
I just watched that a year ago.
I've never seen it.
I knew that because I also watched it with audio commentary.
I had never seen it.
Says The Doors amazing. Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but
it's really good. It's really good.
I'm not going to say I was a fan of their music because I really wasn't. I think that was a little before my time. Yeah. But I mean, I understand and respect that they did put out some pretty good music. So I would be I'd be interested in watching it because I've enjoyed Val Kilmer, and I
also thought he was. I thought, particularly with Batman, he was definitely underappreciated.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he was
Batman Forever is a solid movie.
I really liked that. That was wasn't that supposed to be Michael Keaton's third?
Mm-hmm.
Michael Keaton asked for too much money, so they gave it to Val Kilmer. But then Val Kilmer asked for a rise, and so they took it off him. You know, that's
And that was George Clooney next, right?
Yeah,
right. Yeah. Yep.
Those are supposed to be four. That was supposed to be one solid story, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's same Alfred in all four movies.
Right. That's what I thought. I just want to make sure.
Mm-hmm.
They recast it because they didn't want to pay more for the lead role. Yeah, and they ended up losing more money than they would have paid.
Right.
Who was the bad guy? Because Freeze and Poison Ivy was the last one, right?
That was Batman and Robin.
It was Riddler and Two-Face and Batman Forever.
Tommy Lee Jones and Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Which Jim Carrey was the best.
Oh, yeah.
He was
really good in that.
Hands down best.
Height. I reckon that was the peak Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Before TDS. Well, Jim Carrey was one of the first TDS, you know. Before TDS. Well,
whoops. Sorry. I was trying to share it. I forgot to minimize.
Look, I knew.
Inception.
My bad.
Yeah, Inception. I remember with all the controversy about Val Kilmer, and I keep remembering that, you know, at the time, you didn't have a lot of faith in the media because you always hear Hollywood stories and they're always exaggerated.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember with, Val Kilmer as Batman, Warner Brothers unceremoniously fires Val Kilmer, you know?
Yeah.
And they seemed very proud of themselves. And then, I mean, George Clooney was so stiff, so wooden as Batman. That suit might as well be,
Yeah, he wasn't even good as Bruce Wayne. He was a total dud.
Yeah, well, I thought George Clooney was a good Bruce Wayne.
Actually, as a non-speaking Bruce Wayne, he fit the role.
Yeah.
Well,
he's a good actor as long as he's non-speaking.
The suave billionaire, but yeah, he did not pull off Batman at all.
No.
But how often do you see his eyes moving? You know he's reading cue cards.
And he'd do the head
probably.
nod. I was like,
probably.
Oh, I hear screaming.
Uh-oh.
Right. No, that's somebody getting his attention.
Yeah, my sister-in-law is visiting, so.
Oh, nice.
Apparently, I'm not.
Uh-oh, she's screaming. That's not good.
No,
don't come down.
They're both from Philly. They're all loud. The whole family's loud.
Yeah. Pretend you're not here. You're the boy in the closet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought, I did think that he was very. I wish that he had gone. Honestly, I kind of wish he had been Batman the entire time.
Me too.
I mean, I enjoy Michael Keaton, but I would have liked to have seen Val Kilmer be Bruce Wayne in the beginning.
Yeah, but
physically, he was more believable as Batman than Michael Keaton. I've always had
unfortunately, it's also
Michael Keaton being believable as Batman.
You've seen how hard it is, though, sometimes to keep actors in those superhero roles because the physicality gets to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's why I don't mind. Don't reboot it. Just change act. I mean, and then they rebooted it. It's like every time they change actors. Oh, we got to reboot. It's like Spider-Man.
Good God,
and
how
they
many
made
times
Spider-Man.
They keep reboot Spider-Man
stupid.
every 5 years. At one point, they were.
Don't reboot it. Just replace
Do it
the actor
wrong.
if you need to be.
Pretend they're all the same.
And now Spider-Man's like perpetually
James
in
Bond.
middle school. Or,
that series went on.
Yeah, I don't like that late. I don't like that late.
Yeah.
High school. Like what?
Spider-Man being in a teenager.
Kid.
Yeah, it's
forever. In the comics,
in perpetuity.
The first run.
Right. He's a teenager in high school for like.
Didn't Jeff and them do the math statistics and say that it was like 4%?
Yeah, something
of the run when he was in high school.
Yeah, he was only in high school for the first 20.
It's Spider-Man,
20 to 40 issues.
Emo teenager.
For the emo teen, yeah.
You mean Iron Man 4?
Yeah, Iron Man Jr. Yeah, I don't like the MCU Spider-Man at all.
I did like the last one.
The last one was okay, but where are they going to go?
Isn't it amazing? They went from praising Kevin Feige and his amazing plan to finally admitting it was all throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they give him way too much credit to begin with. It's like, what plan is there? Just put superhero movies out that are halfway decent.
Yeah.
There was an overall arc, right? The arc was to get to Infinity War, to get to Thanos. We had a hint of Thanos in the second or third movie. There was an end credit.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they shot their wad too soon. I hope that's not too early in the show to say that, but
no.
But I mean,
I think
they could have built. There's so many stories they could have built. They could have introduced the Defenders. They could have had the Avengers Defenders War.
Yeah.
Which was
where they really jumped the shark was Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Now
that
I
really
understand,
feels like the movie execs interjected that.
Let's see. There was 2 jump the shark moments, I think. Personally, I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, but they ruined the MCU.
Right. It's all jokes from them.
It's all jokes from the first one. All right.
Serious.
Then by putting Captain Marvel in, they ruined any. I get the hate for Brie Larson. That's whatever. The mess up with the scrolls is really what screwed that story.
Yes.
Oh, they really messed up the scrolls.
They've turned. They can't do a secret invasion anymore.
No, they can't.
They tried.
They've made them good guys.
And they turned Marvel into an old white lady.
Well, I mean, but all that stuff is compartmentalized into that tiny little segment of a story. The bigger picture was the scrolls. The mishandling of the scrolls is really what messed that story up, because you have these beings that were shapeshifters that could have been anybody, which people were speculating was going to be like Tony Stark. And that's the reason why they think people's speculations was that was a scroll that died at Infinity in Endgame, and that Tony Stark's up on sword with Nick Fury,
which would have been a much better story.
Yes, it would have. It would have.
No, they couldn't do that. They had to make them an allegory for illegal aliens.
They did, and that's what screwed the pooch.
Screw them all up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, they could have had
the biggest jump the shark. Now, the second one for me was Racing to Infinity War, because that is the movie they really wanted to do, right?
Right.
For some reason, that Kevin Feige had it in his mind, this 3-arc story about Thanos, which was cut to 2, because, again, the audience they already losing the audience. It may have been a big movie, but remember, that's when there was a huge surge in ticket prices.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think they dragged it out too long. I think the Civil War part should have been. I understand some of the
Civil
setup.
War was too
they should have
short.
saved.
That should have been after
Civil War
Thanos.
for much. Yeah, and it should have been much later. They could have done so many other.
They saved the world.
They leaped past 30 years of great stories to get to the crap that nobody wanted and nobody liked.
But the overall arc is because they altered the MCU timeline for the modern audience so they could inject politics. They screwed everything up. They screwed up Bucky. They screwed up Falcon. They screwed up Brie Larson. They screwed up every character since then, because they now all have to be teenage girls.
Right. Right, and that's what we've been getting. Right, you've had Kamala Khan, and these other.
It's not just about the race. It's just about the fact that they have to make every character teenage girl, which means they're losing half their characters.
Right. Well, then half the characters they brought in have been ones the comic books themselves don't sell.
Yeah.
They're still trying to push that Ms. Marvel thing because they have her dad show up in Daredevil.
They don't want to go back to the original Miss Marvel, which was in the 80s and 90s, which was
because she was too sexy.
Correct. I mean, there were two Captain Marvels that did okay-ish.
Yeah.
One was Monica Rambeau, and the other one was the chick in the black and yellow leotard, right? Yeah. And I forget what I don't know. Was she a Danvers? I don't know.
Yeah, Carol Danvers.
Yeah, there was a Danvers.
I remember.
But that character. I mean, yeah, you go back to Marvel and Marvel and all these, there was a man, it was an alien. That character, no matter what iteration, it doesn't have staying power. And
not every story does. That's what Marvel can't.
Well, and then even Iron Man was not a main character. I mean,
he was a pretty good.
Yeah, but he didn't have
a solid base.
Just because he didn't have a lot of name recognition.
Right. I mean, on the name recognition side. Right.
I thought he was still a heavy hitter in the Marvel
universe. They were able to bring Iron Man and Thor up. Now, some of it's the people they had playing them, but part of it was I mean, I checked out in the whole MCU. I think the last one I saw in theaters was Iron Man 3. Which one was the one with they had 47 different suits?
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, that was the third one.
Now I was done at that point. Do y'all remember Alex Linkle X7? I think was his name.
No.
We had a discussion, a spirited discussion on what ruined the MCU. Was it Guardians of the Galaxy or was it Iron Man 3? I said Guardians. He said Iron Man 3.
I could see both of those. Maybe it's a 1-2 punch.
What about? Well, see here, that's the thing. Like, I think Guardians came out first, and then Iron Man 3 was next.
Right, because you were building toward the Avengers,
but
then all of a sudden we had these solo movies.
Well, but see, here's the thing: you had Winter Soldier, then you had Guardians, then you had Iron Man.
Yeah. Winter Soldier was the peak.
That was the best. I'm not lying, dude. I love that movie. Political thriller, just government out to get everybody. Like,
I like all the Captain America films.
Here's another thing,
except the recent one, which is not really.
The MCU doesn't have a proper continuity. That's where they're really losing people. Because is the government good? Is the government evil? Who's the president? Why do they keep changing? Is it is this every year or every 4 years? Why are the characters aren't all aging if they're like changing presidents every movie? That's like every 4 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I what was your problem with Iron Man 3, Leip? I mean, like I enjoy hearing what people say about this movie.
Oh my goodness, it's been so long. Well, to me, I think it felt odd that we were building toward Avengers. We had some interaction, and then also we have this standalone movie. Now, I can understand from the Guardians side because they hadn't been introduced yet. And the energy side of keeping track of everything started to become too large. I mean, a lot of people didn't like the second Thor movie, but it set up it enhanced the struggle between Thor and Loki, right?
Yeah.
And Iron Man 3 felt to me too much like, hey, we have a contract with Robert Downey and he has to have another movie that's on his own.
Actually, I believe it was to keep him from leaving.
Right.
Really?
So, yeah. So to me, it was like, okay,
it's use it or lose it with a contract.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, I think if there had been more interaction with other characters, It's still an Iron Man movie, but it's got Falcon or something else in it. I think it
and it fit with the continuity, not
right.
a standard.
And then the whole thing with Pepper at the end, showing up with
Pepper, show me you love me by giving up everything.
Right. Well, then she she was like
and then becomes
steel or
Iron
whatever.
Man.
Right.
Well, he injected that dude. The dude kidnapped her and injected her with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just felt a little, I don't know, too convenient, I guess. Like I said, it's been years since I saw it once in theaters. It was the last one I saw in theaters. I was ready for the Avengers, to get, now granted, still pick up people, right? But I was ready. It's like we've got the Avengers going, let's go. And also
what
feels like a standalone movie. And it's similar to my problem with the Black Widow movie. It's like it should have been 3 years earlier.
Oh yeah, right. That was an actual movie.
Unfortunately.
I'm sorry, what name?
With Iron Man 3, it should have been Demon in a Bottle.
Should have been Demon in a Bottle in the second movie.
Yeah, but they barely covered it.
I know. They just gloss over it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you're drinking too much. Okay, I'll stop doing
now,
that.
I will say,
yes,
I liked Iron Man 3 better than Iron Man 2. That just felt weird to me.
Why?
Because Whiplash was rushed in and rushed out and barely was in it.
That makes sense. Okay. Okay. How was Whiplash in the comics more did he have more like longevity?
Yeah, he was he was
a major villain. He wasn't one of my favorites, but
I didn't know him, so I didn't know.
But they could have done a whole thing where he's like ripping Iron Man's armor apart and stuff, and they never got that into it.
He was a bigger challenge than they portrayed him as.
Gotcha.
He wasn't, and I don't think he was Russian, was he? I think they changed that.
No, he wasn't Russian in the comic, I don't believe.
No. I believe at the time when the movie came out, a lot of people said, why are they making him Russian? Now we know why, right? They were building up Russophobia, putting bad Russians into everything again,
that would make sense.
Yeah, because it wasn't politically correct to have Middle Eastern terrorists or the Irish terrorists they had surrendered, so they weren't terrorists anymore. They decided, you know what? Let's trade with the English instead of blowing them up. Hey, you go to Ireland now, especially Northern Ireland, an area that used to be really bad in the 80s and 90s, and it's
now thriving.
Yeah, but granted, some of it was. I'm in my 40s when these movies were out. I didn't have the energy either, right? But, if I was a comic... And as much as I read comic books back when I was 10, I was more Superman, Batman, and Sergeant Rock. So I didn't have much Spider-Man and Iron Man. So I didn't have the depth of knowledge of the Marvel comic.
Neither did I. I had a lot of G.I. Joes or Beetle Bailey or
I even had a Sergeant Rock Superman crossover, but I didn't have part 2.
I even had a lot of monster stuff,
I had Archie comics.
There's hardly anything.
Yeah. I had all I still somewhere I've got like Mork and Mindy trading cards too. So Battlestar Galactica, the original series. Star Wars. My brother stole my baseball card, so.
But a lot of people don't understand the MCU. Like, it's actually a lot of rewritten stories.
And
they rewrite them over and over again because they know their audience lasts about 10 years. The movies have actually lived past their audience.
Well, how long did when they would reboot a comic,
about every 10 years,
or Batman, so someone would run it? Would it be the same writer for all that time period, or the same kind of vision? Team of writers.
They had a team, and writers and artists would come and go between different comics. They'd have 3 or 4 comics to do.
Okay.
which is why sometimes you get similar stories in each in packs and crossovers.
Yeah.
But at one
Well, it's
point,
like Captain
Marvel,
Marvel, that one's been rebooted. I don't know how many times over the years.
Yeah, it's
like,
the most rebooted, I believe.
The first edition sells well, and then nothing else does.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to cover it, years ago, probably 7-8 years ago. It's like they were rebooting it like every 6 months or something stupid like that.
Yeah, they'd have a new. Yeah, that's when Marvel was in its issue 1 of.
Well, I think that's when people didn't know what to do, whether we're going to still have print media or is everything digital.
Well, I think that's when they were trying to find out if they could have both, because they had a core audience that wanted the signature packs and ultimate covers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they upped the price by saying we're upping the quality.
Yeah.
And then they came out with these, remember the hardcover comics?
Yeah.
Like $30 for, 12 pages of art,
But, and it feels to me that is a balancing act, right? It's like vinyl has come back, but it's not like you got record stores. You can get vinyl pressings of various albums.
Yeah, Marvel should have done
Instaprint. You don't have record stores anymore.
Yes. Yeah, Marvel should have done Instaprint, right? Say, right, we're going to print so many copies of this, full stop.
Yeah.
We're going to distribute it amongst our key partners, full stop. Because there are too many comic book stores. They're all closing. You're going to have to reorganize because we're not going to support you and we're not going to take comics back every month. Things have changed. Sales aren't peaking. So we're going to print less than we sell, and the rest is going to be digital.
Oh, or on demand, right?
Or on demand.
Sorry, I was gone. I was looking up.
Demand,
I was looking up if Whiplash was Russian, and it confused me because, there is a Whiplash now that is Russian and is more based on the movie.
Yes,
but I'm looking him up in the Marvel Universe Handbook from 1985.
Yeah.
And no, at one point he changed his name from Whiplash to Blacklash.
Oh, wow.
Like this.
Yeah.
And that guy was not Russian. They've just made the comics to be more like the movies, I think. So
what's up, Carl? How you doing, buddy?
So long answer, short answer, long answer, short. He was originally not Russian. His name was Mark Scarlatti, which sounds more Italian.
Yeah, I'll say.
Definitely Russian.
Yeah.
Definitely Putin's right-hand man.
There's Markov Marlovsky.
Yeah, he's definitely Putin's right-hand man, head of the Russian mafia.
Because it confused me because I looked him up on the Marvel Universe database, and it's Anton Vanko, which is the name that he has in the movie.
Yeah,
but I mean this is like the second Whiplash, I think.
Yeah, that's why you can't trust Marvel. They go full Orwellian with their timelines, like they did with Captain Marvel.
No, David, we've always been at war with Oceania, and he's always been Russian. So there you go.
Correct.
Apparently, I don't know.
Actually, we're Oceania. They're East Asia, aren't they?
Oh, okay. I
no, the party's always right, comrade.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I read that. So.
Yeah.
Hey, do y'all have anything else you want to add, or can we go to a different direction?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Well,
I'm good.
Actually, the word of the day is reciprocity. Is it reciprocal?
Say that 5 times fast.
Reciprocity.
Yeah. You can't retroactively change what's in my desk drawer, though.
That's what you think.
That's a hard copy.
Trump's tariffs.
They can't. Oh, okay.
So, what's the deal with April 5th being the national,
right,
the National Day of Action and the hands-off protests?
I don't know what the hands-off
protest. I don't know.
I don't think
that's all about Elon. They're protesting Elon, but I'm like, you guys aren't hands off the Teslas. You guys are destroying them and getting arrested.
Yeah. But apparently, let's see. Apparently there's 1,200 protests lined up across the country tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know 2 of them are going to be 2 towns over from me.
And the funny thing isn't,
so the
aren't
1%
like
are
7
protesting
out of
again.
aren't 7 out of 10 Tesla owners Democrats? So all they're doing is making more Republicans by doing that. In my opinion.
No, all they're doing is marking who they really are.
They believe they're losing rights and a bunch. of
their
other
approval
nonsense.
rating is lower than it's ever been.
Yeah,
worse than under Biden. Oh, by the way, speaking of Biden, they now admit that he was a crazy old man who shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, exactly.
No, really?
Well, there are 2 people that own Cybertrucks where I live,
Mm-hmm.
and I can guarantee you try to do any of that stuff to their trucks.
Oh
you
yeah,
will not be seen again, and no one will give a shit.
Oh yeah, you'll be ventilated.
The sheriff won't even fill out the paperwork.
Missing person.
Right.
Yeah.
It did what?
Filed under shredded.
File 13, man.
Mm-hmm.
But they wanna go against like cutting money.
Yeah.
The thing that gets me the most is the fraud and waste that's being demonstrated.
It's amazing.
And
50 years of it, Elon said.
Yeah, well, it's decades upon decades.
No, but the records only. Yeah, but
Right.
he's got only a certain amount of records on file. Yeah.
The Democratic Party, in my opinion, and I'm not the first to come up with this analogy, I think it was a comedian, is like the wife who got caught cheating, and she's like, "You went through my phone?
Yeah.
You went up my phone?" It's like, that's not the issue here. The issue is you're cheating.
Well, I remember
the issue is almost every NGO is a money laundering scheme to dole out money to politicians and people who and 6 figures, sometimes as high as $400,000 for former Democrats who either lost their job because they were White House staffers or because they were corrupt congressmen thrown out.
I can't remember what year it was. This was back years ago when I still listened to Rush Limbaugh on, nearly every day. And I think it was it after Bush? Maybe been before then. George W. I can't remember if it was one of his terms or if it was early Obama, because I would listen sporadically during that time. But it may have been well before then. But essentially, because it even affected his view of Reagan and some of the stuff that happened then, and it was seen that and I remember, this is why I wish I remember exactly what happened, because this essentially was our first glimpse into the economy was really crap, but the government had been propping it up for a long time, and it wasn't known. It wasn't like it was obvious that it was something that I wish
somebody said since 91.
Right. And he's like, well, he was even doubting the recovery of the 80s, and
but maybe the recovery of the 80s was paid off,
because a lot of it was
the first time in a long time you had a zero, but you had zero debt. Your budget was
balanced. It was. Yeah, well, it was past 91. I think it was, because that's when
that period in that 91, 92.
When Newt Gingrich took over
period of
as
Newt
speaker,
Gingrich.
That's when they balanced the budget for 3 years, and then they kicked him out. But that was under Clinton. That was a little bit later. But and now so I almost attribute it to that, where he was incredulous and a lot of Republicans were, of what was going on, and how much of the economy was because we were pumping money into defense contractors, and I mean it was in the open, but it wasn't.
Remember,
obvious.
Amazon started as nothing, and they got $1 million contract to do what? Create a website. They only had one computer on their desk,
right?
And they got.
And now it's what Doge has been finding. It's like, okay, here's the stuff we know that's on the open, and then here's the stuff we didn't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, when was the last time the Democrats won a fair election? I don't even know. I don't even know if Truman won fairly now. Did Truman really defeat Dewey?
We know Roosevelt did it. That He even admitted recently. So I forget who it was. Said, "Nah, Roosevelt didn't win the last three elections."
We know Kennedy got a lot of help from his dad's connections. Much of it he didn't know, which is why they got upset when he did not.
Yeah, there was a feud in the family over that.
Right,
yep.
I get that. But now
Bobby
I'm
was
like,
very upset.
Okay, back in what was that 46 when Truman ran against Dewey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would
have been Dewey, and according to the pollsters, Dewey had won. They started running the print, and then suddenly an hour later, the ballot dump.
So I don't know. So it's like how much of what we know is all fantasy. But I got a dog whining at my feet, so I'm going to get him out.
Not fantasy, altered history. They redecided the outcome.
It's not altered so much as hidden.
No,
right?
they altered the history, right?
Gotcha.
Dewey won. They altered it and got away with it because there is no policing, there is no military, there is no court that will stand up to the Democrats and say, we're not taking that. We're not accepting that. Right? A public official can declare a winner in an election and nobody will challenge it. There have been claims of elections that have been as low, with counts as low as 34% of the vote in New York, and they've given it to Democrats.
Hey, sorry to change subject. I just seen something that really caught my interest. Laura Loomer is suing Bill Maher.
Finally. He's been riding her train for a while.
Apparently, she accused him of, he accused her of having an affair with Donald Trump.
Yeah,
well, that's been he's been accused of that multiple times.
He's accusing her.
Right.
Bill Maher shoots off his mouth every episode.
Because they've been seen together, so therefore, hey, let's accuse
Yeah, let's
why not? Well, she's like, I'm not putting up with this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a professional woman, and I don't want him running his mouth about me. So
good for her.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of stuff is going to come out in the next couple of months about tariffs. What a lot of people don't understand, which is why I said the key word of the day is reciprocal tariffs. Okay, every tariff that Trump has put, China. I mean, for 50 years, countries have had tariffs on the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Canada is one of the highest. China has been getting as high as 34, has been secretly tariffing US goods. They won't allow financial reports out of China to go back to the United States. And the owners, when they come to inspect their companies, aren't even allowed to look at their own books. They have to accept Chinese sales reports. They have to accept that the taxes were paid. And then they could be held liable for debts they didn't even know they had, which is why so many companies have abandoned the Democrats, because they keep negotiating these terrible deals that give China everything and then cover it all up with Chinese national security. So Trump has hit back with 34%. So China's added 34% to US tariffs. But the thing is, China already has tariffs. They just won't admit it. And what these left-wing groups won't admit, and they should be hauled over the coals for this, is they're funded by China.
Here's some breaking news. We can't say
I didn't know I tweeted that. I did not tweet that word that many times. Dr. Coffernaus, you must be retweeting me.
Nah, that's the way.
Uh-oh.
You retweeted it. It must be you.
The F slur's out of the bag.
Yeah.
Oh, the nose. Poor Rebecca, clutching her pearls.
That's pretty funny.
Oh, goodness. Slurs are making a resurgence, let me tell you.
Hey, guess what? You could say retard on YouTube as long as it's after the first 10 minutes.
Freedom of speech is a
Same
thing.
with F-bombs.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
I mean, as long
just
as you're
can't do
not,
too many, which is why I'm
yelling
trying.
fire in a crowded theater. I mean, I don't see it's.
Or no, actually, Bill Maher, you're not covered for lying about. You're not lying if it's not satire when you accuse somebody falsely of something. Okay, you are not protected by slandering a public figure. Okay,
well, yeah, when you're damaging when you're causing possible reputation and financial damage, I mean, that's not good.
Yes, I mean, after all, how many times the Democrats have clutched their pearls and damaged people's reputations and blackballed them, and then go crying now that people have realized that all we have to do is stop watching their crappy movies. A lot of people are blaming Snow White, but they forget, if you didn't put up with what's that name, Wonka, that stupid Wonka prequel, Snow White would have never been made. Okay,
I kind of like that movie.
Oh my God. Tell me you're joking.
No, I mean it wasn't bad.
The movie where Willy Wonka is illiterate and a little black girl has to teach him how to read.
And she's and Noodles is the daughter of the bad guy, and the Catholic Church is hiding chocolate under the cathedral.
And it's like the turn of the century, but the entire British police force is all black people for some reason.
Yeah, and every bad
what the hell was
white.
that?
Yeah,
that's too funny. I didn't even think about that.
That's the problem. See,
it's
that
weird.
That movie was woke, but it was at a time where people didn't notice.
Yeah,
I mean, I noticed it. It actually wasn't that horribly egregious. But
it wasn't
just parts of it.
It wasn't a badly made movie like Snow White. At least it didn't have. I think people were more upset with Snow White because of the shitty CGI and statements made by Raquel Zegler than the movie's plot itself. Even though the plot is nonsensical, it's
nonsensical.
People don't care about
Willy
the plot.
Wonka's an illiterate moron who's tricked
Yeah.
into being a slave for no reason. It's just weird.
Paying step by step, and a total exaggeration
weird.
of Victorian England, which because at the time when Willy Wonka was originally written and set, Victorian England had already been mocked into the grave by better writers such as I'm forgetting, Tale of Two Cities comes to mind, but the one about the orphan. Please,
which
sir,
one?
could I have some more?
Oliver Twist.
Yeah,
Oliver Twist. Oliver Twist was the best satire and a nail in the coffin for Victorianism. The absurdity of pretending everything's all right to make everything is all right. But unfortunately, that Victorian era mentality of let's pretend everything's all right is coming back. That's what liberals have been doing for 50 years. It's Victorianism, right? You paint over everything bad. You change nothing. Behind the scenes, you're a nasty, vindictive cow. And then when things go bad, you turn into a warmongering, vindictive cow. And, that everything's there, a lot of people don't understand. But, we're living in one of the greatest times in history, but it's been sabotaged by people who have a immature worldview of, but somebody's unhappy. We have to make them happy. We have to grovel and humble ourselves.
Well, it shows how good we're living. The ordinary person is living better than a king did 500 years ago.
But they're living in such a propagandized time that they are miserable because they think they deserve more. Like, what more do you want?
Some people are making themselves miserable, but...
Yes, I'm just saying, we're living... Yeah, some people are making themselves the most miserable because they want to deny themselves relationships because they feel that it's feeling the patriarchy. Dude, everybody was oppressed up in the Victorian era. Men were more oppressed. Women actually... People don't know this. There were more working women before suffragettes than there was after.
It's true.
People were happier, but they weren't. But yes, they were oppressed, but people could at least work their way out of debt. Whereas today, it's perpetual debt. You finally pay off your house, and then you get hit with retirement. And then have to sell the house to fund your retirement. And then you're just creating more debt for the people behind you because you're making houses longer and harder to buy. All because the boomers were misled by the government to fund their retirement, early retirement, and then it would fuel it and expand the economy by selling houses. And states become addicted to the revenue. And they locked in that revenue by increasing the amount of school teachers on payroll, basically forcing everybody into double income households, which fell apart because of the stress of being in a 2-income household. And the thing is, women have more secure, may earn less, but they have more secure jobs because most of them, because what is it? 56% of them are on a state payroll of some sort. It's just so crazy how people talk themselves into misery. It's a great time to be rich. If you're earning more than $30,000 and the stock market's down, buy stock. Don't panic and buy things on debt, and don't buy stock because you see it soaring. No, that's when the rich are dumping their stocks. The stock market shouldn't be constantly trading. People should buy stocks and hold them when they're low, and that's it. But companies are come and go, but the stock market, it's just overhyped. It literally is talking people into giving up their stocks. You know what I mean? Putting money in the financial system into the hands of a few. Don't trade stocks yourself. Well, why should we trade stocks? For retirement funds should just be building up. Unless a company's in serious, yeah, sure. You can have something like Sears or Borders suddenly collapse. But again, if the laws were robust enough, if those collapses wouldn't have happened, somebody would have stepped in and say, hey, you're losing money, you're out, new ownership, or break up and sell the company, long before they reach the point where their debts are so high. But the obsession with the stock market has people driven themselves mad. Ooh, Trump is bullying over tariffs. It's ruining the stock market. No, investors who have a lot of money know exactly how much stock to sell off to cause a price crash. They force the middle class out of the stock market, then they buy up all the stocks at a lower price. And suddenly there's a rebound. It happens every so-called collapse, right? But every time the middle class starts to rise, there's a stock market collapse. The president gets blamed, and the bankers, they just buy up all the stocks really cheap and start the cycle all over again. When the stocks are high, they start selling them off, telling everybody, we're riding a high, It's ridiculous, But how many times you tell people, no matter how many times you tell people and show them the stock market cycle is mostly driven by a corrupt media, and that these tariffs are nothing but reciprocal, that, Canada's bitching about trade. Oh, please. Trump is right. You'll be better off. Look at all the benefits they listed out, that if Canada became a US state, right? Look what happens to everything, right? Because Canada gets all those freedoms that they allegedly claim they have lost. Their currency, their debts, totally restructured because the US can absorb it. They suddenly have access to a greater job market. They no longer have to pay for their military, so there's a huge saving. Because we're paying for it, your US is paying for it already. So whatever pittance Canada tips in can just go to pay off the debts, But because Canada is so obsessed with single payer, but the government has to pay my healthcare. Meanwhile, you sit there in a charnel house waiting to be killed by the state because it's cheaper than giving you a new hip. It's insane how people are obsessed with healthcare, and yet they don't look at the fine print or the social cost. You know, the whole idea of making you pay for your health insurance was to force you to take better care of yourself, because so many people won't take. And yet we're actually living in better times health-wise than we were. It's just outcomes are starting to decline because we're not training enough doctors, and we're not training and nutritional health. How for the last 50 years they've been ignoring doctor after doctor warning about the poor nutrition. And all of a sudden, you know, RFK is the bad guy because he wants us to be healthier. All these activists, they're just protecting the profits of Pfizer. And did you see, I forget who it was, somebody exposed the activists by, I think it was Liberal Hive Mind, showing that they were all clocking in at the same time and clocking out all at the same time. They're all going with food vouchers to McDonald's. That's not a protest. That's paid activism. And Elon says if this is true, we should be going after the generals. I agree. Go after the people who are paying these protesters. That's economic sabotage as far as I'm concerned. Deliberately destroying businesses.
Well, that's all they can do is destroy stuff. Sorry, I've been reading stuff on here about the day of action tomorrow. The hands off stuff.
Yeah, what have you found?
No, it's nothing more than they just really want to preserve all the jobs. They want to preserve all the spending, and they think that it's coming. You think it's coming for all social securities, and I'm just like, dude, no, it's not. Like,
but this is what the left do. They hyperventilate. They hype everything to extreme, because at the end of the day, sure, they're fighting for their jobs, but they're fighting for you to work hard so that they get paid more than you, live better than you, and work less than you. That's slavery, right? They are fighting so they don't have to do an ordinary job and suffer the same risk of job loss that everybody else has. They think they're special. They think they're entitled to a job for life. They're entitled to more money than you because we're more educated, you know?
Yeah.
This is like, Animal Farm. The animals are, the pigs are upset because some animals say, but you're hogging all the milk for yourself. No, comrade, some animals are more equal than others.
So, in shocking development, Canada announces it will build a coalition of countries who share the values to build their economy and trade opportunities and will exclude the United States. They say if the U.S. no longer wants to lead, Canada will.
Canada could lead a marching band.
Right.
Yeah, you know what this is, don't you? This comes hot on the heels of Europe building a coalition of the willing to stand up to Russia because the US won't. They want to destroy Trump.
Oh, yeah.
So the Eurofash and the Canadian Fash are getting together for a Fash Fest, and the liberal fascists are saying, comrades, we're not fascists. The party is always right. Remember, in 1984, the party was constantly denying that they were socialist. Even though the name was INSOC. Just like Germ Sock, right?
Oh my gosh, dude. So Elon Musk posted, retweeted from Amuse, police claim terrorist. The terrorist is a victim of Democrat incitement. They were inspired to attack Teslas because of Democrat leaders.
What?
I guess he's not wrong.
Yeah, that's accurate.
What? They admitting? Wait a minute. The truth? What is this? Opposite day?
So they can't be blamed because someone else did it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
It's
They're
the
not.
never me argument, right? Allah Akbar, you made me do it because you're satanic. Who said you're satanic? That guy? Who's that guy? Oh, the guy who wants to run your country? Yeah.
Yeah. What?
It's just a coincidence. It's just a coincidence.
April 3rd, did anything come out about Eric Adams? Apparently, he left the Democrat Party.
Oh, that's been building for a while. He's been threatening to do that for months over the immigration crisis and the lack of funding for New York.
Somebody commented and said proof the retardation can be managed.
Good. Don't forget that Biden's DOJ prosecuted Eric Adams.
Wow.
And Trump, didn't Trump put a halt to that? Didn't Trump's DOJ put a halt to that as prosecution or something?
I think so.
Oh, the Eric Adams, that's not the mayor of New York?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They
perhaps.
said it was politically motivated because he had spoken out against the immigrants being dumped on New York. He wasn't talking about the immigrants and busloads from Texas. He was talking about Biden's fly-ins. Nobody notices that a lot of these protests are like less than 1,000 people. I mean, seriously, somebody did a study and showed that sometimes some people will attend as many as 20 different protests in a state. This is the kind of stuff that Hitler did, bust people around Germany to make the party look bigger. Geez, I wonder if they don't want people to study Hitler because they might start drawing comparisons and go, hey, wait a minute. Isn't that the tactics you're claiming that to be against? Like destroying businesses that you don't like? Yeah. Because those who ignore history or aren't taught history tend to repeat it or don't recognize what's going on. Because everything the liberals do seems to be, and I forget the person who wrote it, it was called the Germanification of America. Look at Canada as well, I suppose. How certain post-war people. Take care, Doc. How post-war certain people gained influence through the ability to change their name and hide who they really were. And this is why the CIA had been opposing D-Class, because Alan Dulles gave new identities to certain people. And from Argentina, they went to the United States. And Malay has now dumped all that.
What's up with Jean-Claude Van Damme?
Oh, he was caught up in a sex scandal. Apparently, he's a pretty big client of hookers from a illegal brothel or something.
Something about allegations of human trafficking.
Yeah, he was
child exploitation.
Apparently, a brothel that he frequently visited, or may still frequently visit, was involved in trafficking. And according to the law, I think there's an anti-trafficking law or something that holds the clients responsible as well. But I think this is something they tacked on so that they could sue the rich clients. But Van Damme isn't the only one. He just happens to be the one they said, throw this guy under a bus. Nobody likes him.
Yeah.
Because there's no way. Remember Heidi Klum? Was it Heidi Klum? The big scandal?
The Hollywood Madam, right?
Yeah, Hollywood Madam. They threw Charlie Sheen under a bus.
Like 40 years ago.
Yeah, but they threw Charlie Sheen under a bus then, right?
Oh, they tried.
Yeah.
I think it rolled over him, and then he popped up and went, ta-da!
He went,
Yeah.
and? He went, and? Like, you didn't know I went to escorts? Like, have you read Variety? It's every other day. He admitted it in court. Yep, I paid them my check. Yep, I have receipts for everything. Every girl, as far as I know, was over 18. I never saw any illegal activities. I never took part in any drugs while I was there. What do you want to know? And that was it. You know, they had nothing. It went nowhere. I think people are clutching their clothes, all right? Sooner or later, you got to realize there are places where prostitution is legal, but why then do people go to illegal brothels? Because of the thrill of breaking the law, right?
Yeah.
Plus, if the prostitution is legal, then the prostitutes can sell their stories for lots of money about the time they dated Van Damme, you know? Where if it's illegal, they can't go out and sell their stories about their rich clients. So, you know, the women are exploited. Van Damme deserves everything he gets. But it doesn't mean you should basically hate the guy or, I'm sure he's not the only one who goes to a brothel.
Isn't he like 70?
Yeah. He retired recently. But he made a big movie. He started breaking away from Hollywood and making his own movies, so they dumped him because they didn't want anybody else to be able to fund their own movies and break away from them. And he wasn't the only one, but he wasn't an idiot like Steven Seagal. He never lied about his past like Steven Seagal. Sure, he was a minor champion, not a major champion, but he was still a champion, right? Mm-hmm. He still achieved more than most of the people in Hollywood ever achieved in their life outside of acting.
Yeah.
And again, it's petty jealousy by the Hollywood who think that they're courtiers who must be funded by the state because we're such important cultural figures, you know. And that you must fund Othello and our 50 freaking versions a year that we do, you know.
Oh, I said back in the 90s, I didn't think that the state should be sponsoring art.
It doesn't sponsor art. It sponsors liberal welfare.
Well, for a while, so that was one of the first things I think Clinton did. So every building the government had to have some kind of work of art out front. This was the beautification thing. And part of the problem is this was the start of every federal building had to be a horrible looking box, right? You know, I don't know if you've seen these things like with McDonald's, right? The recent McDonald's compared to back in the 80s or 90s. The Toyland, the Playland, that was all post my time, but my kids grew up with it. And I was I basically said, no, I don't think the government should be sponsoring art, and artists should, you know, the starving artists, you know, they should essentially survive on their own merits, right? If there's some rich millionaire that wants to pay them to throw paint on a canvas,
private patrons,
that's their money, right? That's private funds. I don't have a problem with it. But if it's coming out of my tax money, now I should have a say.
Yes.
So,
and no, I'm not going to pay some actress who should have retired long ago money to be a drama teacher at UCLA for millions of dollars and never do a class.
Yeah, and this is when I lived in Tennessee. It was about 30 years ago, and I forget what built. It was like some jail or something. There was some stupid little art thing out front that had nothing to do with the building itself. It was stupid, dumb, and ugly, and cost too much money. And that was what was on, you know, the local news. And I was like, you know what? No, I don't think it should be there. Yeah. Now, because I could see it for, say, a municipal building in a city level where a patron might say, carve out a space in front of the building and we're going to pay for something to be there, right? And that's how a lot of these statues that they recently melted down right? Some of these statues in Richmond and other places, these were put up by private entities, right? Or at the very most, right, they're donations or some kind of fund drive, and maybe it has some kind of governmental support in the fact that they announce it, but they're not putting any money into it, right? They say, yeah, we can, you've got your permit to approved of a 15-foot statue, whatever it is. There's certain regulations, right? It's got to be made
Robert E.
marble
Lee Foundation comes along, puts in 200 grand.
Can only be this big.
Goes up,
goes here, but it's private donations that actually get it made and erected.
Yes,
I don't have a problem with that part.
And it reduces the city's cost because they put in 200 grand, not got 200 grand off the federal government.
Right. And sometimes the city doesn't put anything in there, or maybe they have to improve the right of way around the spot where you're going to put it, especially if it's
it's a project where the city needs to complete a project, and they say, right, we'll kick in the rest if you name it Robert E. Lee Park.
We'll build a park, and you can put statues in it, but
and then knock them all down.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's
all down because the colonizers are upset that there's white people.
Yeah, well, that's all. That's part of the Cloward and Piven. That's all the 1984, right? We destroyed the history.
Destroy the history, control the future. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But anyway.
We were always here. We colonized the world, says Africa. No, you didn't. Prove it. You weren't there.
I have, speaking of which, I've seen another thing today that said, the people in Europe were 3,000 years ago were darker. I'm like,
we have caveman bodies like the man,
Yeah. And I know what they're trying to do. They're trying to appease the Africa First crowd.
Yeah. The Africa-centric, we call
it. But the thing is even the out of Africa theory I've seen recently in the last few years where a lot of people, it's been debunked more than once.
Yeah. They have a 200,000-year-old skull. And they say, oh, but Lucy's millions of years old. But Lucy ain't human. They proved that. It's only...
Hey, that's Lucy's what you're talking about.
No, there's a small. It's not really a chimpanzee, but well, that skull is
it's at least a hominid. It is not a human.
Well,
no human beyond 200,000 years.
Where that's found, there's an ape that's still there that has the exact same skull.
Yeah,
it's a fraud, is what it is.
They're called Lucy is a fraud. Lucy's not a human ancestor. There is human DNA found throughout a lot of species.
Yeah, and it's not even old, but that's a different point. This is, if you go down the rabbit hole of radiometric
perpetrated by archaeology yet, and it's all over funding.
Well, Piltdown Man was a fraud. I mean, they're all that.
Cheddar Man's now proven a fraud. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's a horse. It's a horse jaw. Oh, and even with, I think it was it Lucy? There was one of them where they found like a jawbone one's place, and a mile and a half away they found a skull cap, and they said, "Oh, this is the same creature."
Wolves dragged it. Is the new excuse.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I know, right? But ultimately, it's like climate change. No matter how much you debunk it, they always come up with a new story.
Yeah.
Or they claim to have fixed that little section of the... Really? You fix that little section of the environment, that the temperature of Greenland is constant because you fixed climate change for Greenland?
Yeah. Well, that's what makes it a non-scientific theory. If it can't be... If it cannot be... if it can't be verified false, if it's not falsifiable, I'll get the right word eventually, it is not a scientific theory.
Yeah, if you have to continue a theory, here's the thing: out of Africa is a theory, not a fact.
Yeah, but
climate change is a theory, not a fact.
And people want to talk about ancient Egypt. Great, those are Semitic invaders. They are not. You're African, right? It's like
Here's this, right? Egypt. Okay, Africans originated not one, but in two places. You have the Bantu, which originated in Nigeria, and then you have the in South Africa, right? There are two origin points for Africans. So if if Semites who originated in the Black Sea, who migrated to Egypt and settled there, are invaders, then Africans who allegedly out of Africa, everywhere else, are also invaders.
Yeah.
Because they're outside their place of origin.
Right. You had Hamitic peoples moving into northern, because you did have
there are 15 known migrations of humanity, and over time those branches have been diverse. The diversity of humanity is decreasing because of race mixing. We're down to 5 branches. We've eliminated, we've genocided 10 branches of humanity by branching. We're not, because we're spreading out and race mixing, and that doesn't increase diversity, that decreases diversity.
Yeah, in some ways.
Well, it's a proven scientific fact. There's only 5 branches of genomes left.
Yeah. But anyway,
the Mongol, the Asiatic, the European, the African, and the Indian.
Well,
that's it.
Yeah. And I was thinking of Ethiopia. That's what I was looking for, because there was the Kushites that took over Egypt briefly.
Yeah, they invaded Egypt and took over, and then 100 years later kicked out.
Yeah. Well,
Egypt was ahead of its time, comrades.
Well, that's the thing with Egypt, is you have some semblance that might be the early Egyptians may have been what we consider African, right? Darker, not positive on that.
The early Egyptians were Semites who settled there and later took. But we don't have anything past 25 generations,
right?
So we don't know the DNA beyond that.
But
we only had the DNA at the time. Kush and Egypt were side by side,
right?
So there was race mixing at that point.
So you had mixing. You had, I think, more than one Semitic invasion. Then you had the what was the ones? There was a group that invaded and then they got repelled, but I can't remember the name of
Berbers. The Berbers. They were
no. This was
invasion.
They were out of the Middle East. In Egyptian history, they name them.
They didn't call them. They call them something else, but they are the
anyway. But my whole point is, then you get
nomads.
Yeah, well, then you had the Sea People invasions and the Bronze Age,
the Phoenicians,
and but then you had Greeks invaded, the Romans invaded, and it's like the culture stayed almost identical. That's the crazy thing about Egypt, is like you'd have people invade, and then the culture would just suck them in, right? Yeah. And China had something similar, where they would give different Asiatics would invade, but then the Chinese culture would just take over. And it's going to drive me nuts, because they were in lower Egypt.
Yeah, Upper and Lower Egypt were 2 societies, but they were the same people. But then the Kush invaded the Upper Nile, but they were held at the Aswan, at what we call now the Aswan line, where the Aswan Dam is, and they were held there. There was gates and everything. They put up huge temples, and it had fortifications. They put
Hyksos, the Hyksos. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, yes, they were.
The Hyksos, the Kushites, the Assyrians, the Persians,
the Hyksos,
Greeks, and the Romans.
Aren't the Hyksos Greeks out of Anatolia?
Well, I don't know if they know who the Hyksos are.
Yeah. I don't know either, but I know, same with the Phoenicians, they trace their origins back to Greek, but they mix with the Semites. The Hyksos might have been a mixed race as well, who trace their origins back to the Greeks. Most of North Africa traces either to the Greeks or the Semites until the Kushite invasions.
Yeah, the Hyksos invade. Okay, so they introduced the horse. So they were kings from the 15th dynasty, of the 15th dynasty.
Yeah. Remember, Greeks settled so many places and changed their name over time. It's crazy.
Yeah, they were. See, that's the thing. The Hyksos had Canaanite customs.
So they definitely were Greeks and mixed with the Semitic, yeah. So they probably came out of southern Anatolia on the or northern Syria.
Yeah,
because the Greeks The way Greeks used to create colonies was actually only send men, and they would mate with and they would mix with the local women and take over.
Yeah, it originated in the Levant. So anyway,
but the Levant was, but see, the thing is, the Semites didn't come from came from Babylon. They didn't come from the coast.
Yeah, Western Semitic languages. So
yeah, but their writing
Canaanite
originates with Greek. As you look at the roots of the Semitic language, all their writing may be their language may be different and modernized with a Arabic alphabet, but ancient Hebrew was written in Greek.
Well, it was written. Well, if you want to get really split hairs, it's actually Egyptian Coptic that then morphed into the Greek.
Yeah,
actually morphed into several things, or morphed into that's
but
where the Aleph,
but we don't have
that's where the ox eventually becomes an A. Yeah. There's a lot of mixing all there with the
but we don't know what happened in the ancient Greek era to know exactly how Greek the Coptics were.
Yeah. There seems to have been a
mixing of the two, definitely.
Well, it seems like it in my view, it seems like it was a revolutionary idea of how to write that was probably floating around. Multiple people were doing different things with the same idea. Because if you compare it to hieroglyphics, or you compare it to Akkadian, or any of the what is it, linear A or B, and the stuff on Kenosis, they're very different, right? It was very
the Phoenicians simplified the alphabet, and that's what we have today. We have this. Well, they simplified it to 24 symbols.
But the ox, eventually the Aleph becomes an A, and and then the Romans kind of
the
take that idea.
Becomes the P, the F, and the T,
and then they inflicted on the English speakers, and we haven't recovered since.
The English, what did they got the alphabet?
Bring back the
Greek scholars.
I want to bring back Thorn and Win. And
the Greek scholars who stayed behind after the collapse of the Roman Empire in England, the Greek scholars stayed behind because they didn't want to be because they were freed slaves. They were slaves. People don't know this, but a lot of ancient scholars were slaves.
Yeah, I want some of the runes back. English still has an F, and we still have a win, and we still have a thorn sound, and just using TH for all of it is dumb. Sorry. Anyway, rant over.
We're going to probably have a hard out here in a few minutes, unless you guys want to keep going.
No, I don't.
No, okay. I think there's nothing else coming.
We've gone down into diatribe lane so deep that we need to just be put to bed.
We had a fantastic discussion about earlier part about movies and whatnot. That was fun.
Oh, that was good. But the thing is, I'm glad you enjoyed it. The grand takeaway I hope that people learn is stop letting Hollywood dictate your tastes.
Yeah. But anyway, tomorrow Coffee and Gaming will start 30 minutes early. I've got some tree cutting stuff to do. So I've got a friend coming to help me at 9:00 in the morning.
Yeah, so, I need to learn how to do that. I got some trees that are falling over that I need to cut, but I know if I do it wrong, it's going to spring up in my face, and if I survive, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those things. The way it's sitting, I got to cut it right, or it's going to go whoosh.
Yeah, a tree dropped about 2 years ago, and we've just been I've been waiting on my cousin to come get it, and he's finally going to come get it, but we need to cut it up into like 8-foot lengths.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna cut it up. He's gonna come over Sunday and pick it up, but we're gonna get it all cut up and situated.
David, what are you yelling at me for?
Sorry. Before we go, you're gonna get a rope. You got to tie it round, loop it round a few times, tie it back with a hitch, and just keep hitching it back until that thing is stretched, and then you notch it a couple of times until she starts to break, and then you cut it hard on below the break.
Yeah.
Because it is a tree it's one of those trees that fell over during the hurricane, and it's a path.
But if you don't get rid of it now, it'll rot and start bringing in the ants.
Yeah. Well, it's well in the woods, but
Doesn't matter. You gotta fill that sucker before it becomes a threat.
It's just that it's it's quite downhill, and so I know if I cut it wrong, it's gonna
That's why you got to set up a couple of stakes and a couple of ropes and hitch that thing so it's creaking.
Yeah. Anyway,
so
go ahead.
Knows which way to fall.
Yeah.
All right. Copy game half hour earlier.
Half hour earlier.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, we'll start half hour early, and that way we'll end right at 8:30. So I guess that's it. Buy David's book. Check out Lape's channel. Check out all the stuff David's got going on. All the links and everything's down below. I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 6:30 a.m.
Sweet.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Good day, sir.
Later, dudes.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Hell, I got to go.
Peace out.
Burn in hell, New World Order. Fuck you. Fuck you, New World Order. Fuck you, Bill Gates.
I love you.
You gotta do better than that.
I